Thanks, Lachlan. That was a great first part of the session. I'm gonna very quick here. This part is requirements for career advancement. We have the pleasure of having Deputy Chief Kalpana sorry, Chief Rajgopalan. She'll kill me for that. She is an absolute trailblazer. I've had the pleasure of working with her and sitting with her and really getting a lot of information from her. She is excellent in what she does. She is also the co-founder of, or so the founder of the Blaze Academy. Without further ado, Chief.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And no, Frank, I promise you, I won't kill you. Can you hear me okay? Everybody can hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. I see that Captain Agard has his hand up. Thank you. So first of all, I want to congratulate the Allied Firefighters of Canada. I had the pleasure of listening in to the last few minutes of your previous end of the session where you had individuals asking you questions about what kind of skills are important, how they can become a part of the fire service, and what they need to do in order to be successful in that application process. So all great information, and so absolutely fantastic to listen in. Thank you for the opportunity this evening. I am absolutely honored to share the podium. I know that there are some amazing fire service professionals that you're going to hear from, and it's my absolute honor to be sharing the podium, the virtual podium, with all of them today. So when Captain Porter, who works for the Oakville Fire Department, approached me about this opportunity to provide some information to those that are interested in a career in the fire service, I was thrilled and absolutely all over it. But as I was putting my material together, I was thinking about the breadth of experience that is going to be on the panel and how can I provide you with something of value. So I've put together what I think will be helpful to you. I've got a little bit about my story, some common obstacles that people experience when they're looking to advance their career, some advice for those that are starting out, and perhaps also some thoughts for those who are currently in the fire service and what we can do to make sure that we provide opportunities to those that are underrepresented, traditionally underrepresented within the fire service. I'm going to share my screen, but before I do that, because I am at work, my radio is going off in the background. I'm going to try and reduce the volume, so bear with me. Okay, perfect. Let's see if I can share my screen. It says you cannot start up. There we go. It says I cannot start the screen share. Okay. Are you able to see my presentation? Yes. Okay. I've got a thumbs up. Perfect. Thank you. So a little bit of what I wanted to speak to you about today is I thought I'd speak to my background. I heard some comments about what it is that employers look for, so I can certainly tell you that a non-traditional background that I do have. So I'm going to share a little bit about my background, my passion for public service, some common obstacles to career growth, how you can overcome those obstacles, the importance of having mentors and allies, some advice for those that are starting out, and I want to touch on our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, including Blaze Fire Academy. And then if there's time, I'll leave it up to the moderators for some wrap up and some questions. So by way of background, I'm a first-generation immigrant. I've been in this country for about 30 years now. I'm from India. I'm South Asian in my background. I was born and raised in India. I started out in the private sector. I secured many positions of progressive responsibility, similar to Firefighter Jones, talked about working in financial services. I spent a number of years in financial services, but I wanted to do more. And I was very fortunate that through an opportunity that I had to volunteer, I really wanted to provide, I wanted to support and do more for my community. So that really for me was that passion and wanting to give back and wanting to get involved with my community that I started to seek out opportunities within the public service. And through that process of looking for opportunities within the public sector, it definitely, my journey brought to light for me the many challenges, and I'll speak to women because that's what I faced particularly, but not just as a woman, but a woman of color. And I really had the opportunity to see that the intersectionality of many differences, being a woman of color, pursuing a profession that is typically dominated by traditionally the white male dominated environment, presents a lot of challenges. Definitely does not, we all hear the message, I'm sure, you have to try harder. I'm sure you've heard that. Yes, there is that piece where you are going to try harder, but a lot of the times it was about confidence. And for me, that took a lot. And I'll speak to sort of my experience with allies and mentors and finding people that were willing to help you pursue your career goals. But there's one thing that I absolutely wanted to touch on, and that was to always continue to pursue higher education. So whether it's pursuing skills, so I heard questions about wanting to be a firefighter or pursue other professions within the fire service and questions about training and certification. So for me, what that meant was in order for me to pursue the roles that I was looking for, particularly coming from a non-traditional fire services background, is I went back to school to get a master's in public administration. So it came with its own host of challenges at that point in time. But I would definitely say an investment in yourself, whatever you choose to pursue, whether it's at the firefighter level and or in any other position within the fire service, definitely investing in yourself is going to have the biggest payoff. Okay. Hopefully my slides are advancing as I speak. If I can just get a thumbs up, I think they are. Okay. So that was a little bit about my background, obviously, and here I am today. I'm very fortunate, I'm honored, and I'm proud to be one of the 3 deputy fire chiefs here within the Oakville Fire Department. But it didn't come without its obstacles. And I often touch on the Harvard Business Review, and many of you would have heard about this. So according to the Harvard Business Review, men apply for a job when they meet about 60% of the qualifications, and women only apply for the job when they meet 100% of them. So I can share with you that I was definitely that statistic. I recognized that the biggest obstacle holding me back was me. And that if I wanted something, if I wanted the opportunity, I had to seek it out and I had to work hard to get it. But what that meant for me was also that I had to leave my comfort zone, including the organization that I worked for, where I was comfortable to progress my career. And I really learned that you have to leave to go where the opportunities are. Because if you can't, if it is not what you're looking for and you want to go somewhere else, you have to seek out those opportunities. Now, I recognize that I'm very lucky. I obviously, this wasn't a one-person job. I was very, very fortunate to have the support of my family, my friends, and fortunately, a mentor that was willing to utilize their social capital to help me advance what it is that I wanted to do. And I will also say that the only constant for me in all of the rewarding experiences throughout the course of my career was that I was never alone. I have been part of phenomenal teams that are made up of both amazing coworkers, supervisors, and other leaders who, as a collective, are working to achieve our common goals. So being aware of your strengths and weaknesses and the willingness to contribute to the success of your team that you are a part of are integral to achieving the collective goal and to being successful. And that applies at every level within the fire service. There isn't a single thing that we do that is your sole responsibility. You're always part of the larger collective. And I think as long as you keep that goal in mind, you're part of a team and you're willing to not just bring your strengths, but also willing to work on your weaknesses, and placing team interests ahead of personal accomplishments was really key for me in my journey, and being willing to overcome. Yes, there are things that I want to accomplish as an individual, but the collective accomplishment of the team is also very, very rewarding. And I'm always aware that as one of the few women in the role of a deputy chief in a male-dominated industry, I have a unique opportunity, but also some unique challenges. And sometimes it's not just about a glass ceiling, because you don't just hit a certain level at a ceiling, but sometimes you have to bust open doors just to get through, and then comes the ceiling. So I would definitely say, don't let skepticism kind of deter you. And when I face challenges, whatever those challenges may be, I try to counter them with information, with innovation, with solutions. So doing your homework, focusing on those skills that I had the opportunity to listen in on, whether it's that customer service aspect, knowing your community, responding to the call, coming in to do your job, you're volunteering, showing up for the calls, all of those help you provide information that if you were to encounter skepticism, you can encounter that with information and with innovation and some solutions. A lot of the times I share this quick story. I don't know how I'm doing for time, so just tell me if I can keep going, or if you'd like me to speed it up, I can. So a lot of the times I share this story. When I was with a previous fire department, I volunteered with the Toastmasters group with young, it was in the Malton area of Mississauga. So if any of you know, it's a very diverse community in Malton. You get a lot of people from all over the world. And I volunteered there on Sunday afternoons, and the individual who invited me would always ask me to show up in uniform. I told him, well, this is on my own time, but he always asked if I would show up in uniform. I'll be really quick. The reason I say this is because we really can't be what we can't see. So for the 6+ months that I volunteered there, most people thought I was a security guard. So I got lots of questions about where the washrooms were, where they should go for the different programs. But never once, even when I would sit in on the Toastmasters session and provide feedback and be on the panel with those that were presenting that day, nobody ever thought that it was with the fire department. And finally, one day, this young lady came up to me, and she was South Asian, and she said, "Are you with the fire department?" At that point, I was very tempted to tell her that I just wore the uniform, but I didn't think that would go over well. So I did tell her that I was with the fire department, and that led to what I will say is an amazing friendship, because she was shocked. She had never seen anyone that was South Asian in a fire department uniform. She had seen police officers, she had seen EMS personnel, but she had never seen someone from the fire department. And that day for me was really about this incredible opportunity I have and the pride with which I wear my uniform every day, and be that change agent, telling people, like, you know what, if this is something you really want to do and work hard for it, seek out those opportunities and are willing to be part of a team and do whatever it takes, you can absolutely get to where you want to be. So I'll quickly move on, because we are talking about career advancement. And one of the most important components for me is those mentors and those allies. And I kind of think about them, or I kind of describe them as your own personal board of directors, right? So mentorship starts with the relationship. And for me, in my case, my mentor was my immediate supervisor when I worked at the Office of the Fire Marshal. He had the opportunity to see what my abilities were, but I was also responsive to feedback and was willing to implement change. And the one thing I'll say is that it does not have to be structured or formal all the time. We still stay in touch. I reach out to him for advice, and he's a great sounding board for me. And I would definitely say that I am where I am because my mentor absolutely is willing to provide me with opportunities that challenged me and also allowed me to push myself. So the one thing I would say to anyone here is that definitely seek out someone that you can connect with. And it has to be someone who can see you and the abilities that you bring, so that they're willing to vouch for you and they're willing to help you and support you because you've made an investment in yourself and you're willing to work hard and push yourself forward. I still reach out to this day to people that I meet. I regularly network with like-minded colleagues. There are many opportunities for thought leadership to exchange ideas, solutions. We all face similar challenges, maybe scope and scale and what day and what you're facing may be different, but a lot of the times they're definitely similar. And the other piece I would say is a huge shout out to my peers on the fire management team at the town of Oakville and the many allies that I'm fortunate to have within the town administration itself. The one thing I try to do is be a champion for anyone that's looking for that advice, that mentorship, and that ability to move forward. And I would say that it is very, very powerful when you have both male and female colleagues that are cheering for you and are willing to push you along. Some advice very quickly before I move on to the DEI initiatives. I would tell, when I look back at me 30 years ago, this is what I would tell the 20-something-year-old me, would be to take risks and not be deathly afraid of hearing no. And it took me a very long time to understand that having all the qualifications and doing quality work were not the only or even primary reasons for success. So put yourself out there, work hard, and find your personal board of directors that will cheer you on. Be focused and passionate about what you want. And absolutely, I have a 4-year-old Labrador retriever, and be like a dog on the bone in your pursuit of it. If it is what you want, stay focused. The other thing is to be yourself, but more important, know yourself and what you represent, because it is really important to be authentic and to be genuine and to be true to what you stand for, because that's what's going to set you apart from your competition. Go where the opportunities are, even if it means leaving your organization, because you do have to step outside of your comfort zone in order to get what you want. The other piece for me, if you don't get the job the first time, it's not the end of the world. Circle back and ask for feedback, particularly when you don't get the job. Be confident in your capabilities. Throw your name in for the job. If you feel you're qualified, let them tell you not. So don't eliminate yourself from positions that you think you need criteria for. And finally, I can't speak enough about the importance of having mentors and allies. So find someone that is willing to use their social capital to help you advance. And the only way they would do that is if you demonstrate your abilities, your willingness to work hard and seek challenges. The last piece I want to talk about is some diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and I'll specifically focus on Blaze Fire Academy. So in 2022, founded Blaze here within Halton Region with the vision of a fire service for all. So in a previous fire department that I had worked in, used to have the equivalent of Camp Molly, which was Camp Ignite. And that really was to provide opportunities to women to consider a career in the fire service. So in 2022, we rebranded from Camp Molly in order to offer programs to underrepresented groups who wish to consider the fire service as a career. They are not only limited to young women. We offer a whole host of different programs, so I'll take you through those. They're hosted at the Fire Training Campus with the support and participation of all Halton Region fire departments. And our goal is to offer opportunities to explore all aspects of the fire service: suppression, prevention, public education, training, patients, and administration. So some of the programs, so last year what we did is we offered, for the first time ever, we offered a change of careers program. So it was a hybrid camp which was aimed at attracting individuals that would like to explore a career change. And in our current recruit class that's graduating on Friday, I'm super thrilled that we have one of those individuals who attended a Changing Careers program camp last year, went out and decided that this was absolutely what they wanted, made the investment, got their qualifications, and was successful through to being on the recruit class this year. Huge commitment, comes to us with a significant amount of time in another career, but is absolutely thrilled to be a new recruit here. And of the small recruit class that we do have, two out of the 6 were a small department, small recruit class. So one person came from our Change of Careers program, and 2 others were volunteers at 2 different Blaze Academies. So all that to say, this year we've got a youth program. So that is open to both boys and girls, so young men and young women within Halton region that want to explore the possibility of the fire service. So we've got that in July, and we continue to want to attract women to consider the fire service and provide them with an opportunity and an environment in which they can thrive. So we have a young women's program as well in August. And the reason I throw that out there is, you know, as a deputy fire chief and within the Oakville Fire Department, for me, it's about using my position to attract, retain, and advance talent that reflects the community for which we serve. So this is an amazing opportunity for those of you that are on the call. If you want to volunteer or be a part of Blaze Fire Academy and give your time in whatever capacity, we would welcome you. And it's amazing for, particularly if you're working with a number of young men who are looking for that role model, who are looking for someone they can look up to and see themselves in the roles that many of you are representing on this call today. So Captain Porter, Captain Hayward, firefighter Beals, like you are amazing. To name a few, I don't want to exclude anybody, but you're amazing role models, and it's fantastic for our youth to see people like you in positions that you hold and represent. So for anyone on the call, if you are a member of the BIPOC community and you want to come out and make a difference or be a part of Blaze Fire Academy, whether it's for the youth program in July or the women's program in August, feel free to reach out to me, and we would love to have you as a volunteer within our program. So in closing, I'm at the end. I wanted to keep to my time, so hopefully I have. So in closing, I'll just say that for me, I think each one of our successes is an inspiration to one another, and we absolutely are the strongest when we cheer each other on. There's a lot of room for all of us on the podium and to be able to support and advance and help each other. So for me, it's about making sure we're inclusive, we're passionate, above all, we're kind, and we serve with pride. So any questions, I'm happy to take them. I don't know if I've gone over my time. I'll stop sharing. And I'll turn it back over to executive here.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Okay. That was great. That was a lot of great information there. For our next speaker. So in its nearly 270-year history, Halifax now has the first African Nova Scotian to hold a senior leadership position. So since 2020, Chief Corey Beals has been the Deputy Fire Chief of Halifax Regional Fire and Emergency. So we are honored today to have him talk about developing leadership skills. All right.
Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me? Perfect. Can you see me? That's unfortunate. So my apologies for the technical glitches that we had this evening. Our department, we don't support Zoom, but for some reason, I wasn't able to log in and present this slide. So my colleagues are going to do that for me. So if we could start by popping up my presentation and going to slide number 1. All right, this presentation this evening is on leadership development. My intent is not to provide you with an academic dissection of what leadership is, but rather to take you through. Can we go back to the first slide, please? Keep going. All right. Okay, that's good. The intent of my presentation this evening is not to provide you with an academic dissection of what leadership is, but rather to take you through my journey in the fire service from a volunteer firefighter to my current role as the Deputy Fire Chief. I chose this approach primarily for 2 reasons. Firstly, to acknowledge the value of volunteer fire service and its impact on my career. And secondly, to highlight the historical milestone of my progression through the leadership ranks in hopes it may be an inspiration to those of you who are seeking promotion and or succession opportunities. So as I navigate through this presentation, I will highlight what I believe are keys to becoming a leader in the fire service and the importance of preparation and developing a plan that will guide you through your own journey in becoming a leader. Slide number 2, please. So the next couple of slides will provide some historical context to my opening comments. So for those of you who didn't know, HRFE, as was previously indicated, is the oldest fire service in Canada, dating back to 1754. The picture in the slide is of station number 2, which is our oldest continuously operating fire station in Canada. Currently, that station is undergoing a $3 million renovation to modernize the interior of the second floor living space to sustain it for the next several years. Slide number 3, please. So this slide is a picture of the founding members of Station 22 in North Preston, which is my beautiful home community where I started volunteering back in 1992, and it's the only all-black fire station in Canada. And I will note that Station 51 in Upper Hammonds Plains, which is now decommissioned due to a lack of volunteer firefighters, was the first all-black fire station in Canada. Organized in 1996, and the station was built in 1970. So you're probably asking yourself, why am I giving you this historical info during a leadership development presentation? It's not to brag about myself or our department or to promote our department, but I do believe it's important to highlight the history, and it's relevant in my initial motivation to become a firefighter, and it was also what inspired me in my drive to become a leader in the fire service. Slide number 4, please. So I was going to do a Menti exercise to provide an opportunity for you to participate, but in the essence of time, we're going to skip that. But in replacement of that, I'm going to ask you a few questions for you to think about during the presentation and also to ponder afterwards as we go away and take home. So question number 1, what are the skills, attributes, and qualifications that define a successful leader? What do you need to acquire these qualifications? Question number 2, what type of leader do you want to become? Is there a particular position? Is there a style of leadership that you want to adopt when you aspire to become a leader in the fire service? And the final question is, what do you want to become in the fire service, or why do you want to become a leader in the fire service? Is it because of status? Is it motivation, inspiration? Is it because of financial gratification or financial gain? So take those 3 questions away with you. Think about it during this presentation, because it's important for you to understand the role of a leader in the fire service, the impact of the leadership position in the fire service, and also understanding why you want to become a leader. Next slide, please. So if you decided you wanted to become a leader in the fire service, or a colleague or chief officer recommended you apply for a promotion based on your assessment, their assessment of your skills and attributes, what's your next step? I'm going to offer you the approach that worked for me. And that was 3 components here. First of all, it was planning. Second was preparation. And then obviously, once you prepare, once you plan for a promotion or succession opportunities, you need to be given the opportunity. And I'll dissect those in the next few slides. Next slide, please. So everything starts with a plan, which includes setting goals, whether it's intentional or not, or in the subconscious. We set or make plans to accomplish most things in life, but how often do we devise a plan to determine or dictate our career path? As a young boy, I watched in awe when I saw volunteer firefighters in my community training in the field behind our house. I was inspired by this at a very young age, so I set a personal goal at that time to be a volunteer firefighter. Why? Because I saw myself reflected in the Black firefighters trained in my backyard. It gave a real life perspective to the saying, seeing is believing. The 10 years I spent volunteering in my community 35 years ago gave me some of the most rewarding memories and experiences I will ever have. But without a plan, I wouldn't be here presenting before you today. In 1996, I was working in Jamaica. I had a plan. I had to leave work and fly home just to apply and write the aptitude test for our career recruitment process. It was an expensive sacrifice I made because I was determined to become a career firefighter. It's important that we set goals and develop a plan to attain those goals early on in our career, because opportunity waits for no one. So over the years, I've learned we must be willing to open and changing or modifying our plans. So remember, if your plan is not working, change your plan, or I should say, don't change your goal, change the plan. And I'll repeat that. If your plan is not working, don't change the goal. Maintain that goal and maintain that focus, but alter and modify and change your plan. Without these adjustments, and if I didn't have a plan, I may still be on the outside looking in or on the inside looking up, hoping and wishing I would have devised a plan to get to the next level. Don't allow circumstances beyond your control to dictate your destiny. Plans can and will change. So if your goal is to become a leader in the fire service and the plan you develop is not working as expected, change course. Go to plan B or make whatever adjustments you need to maintain your focus on your goal. Next slide, please. Often the most difficult task in any career is getting in the door. I accomplished that task, and then my goals changed. From day one, I knew I wanted to be more than just a firefighter. Not that there's anything wrong with being a firefighter, because we need good hose men and women. We need good engineers, good pump operators, truck drivers. But I wanted to aspire to go to a higher level. So I put a plan in place and I started to prepare. Unless you have luck on your side, leadership development and career advancement requires preparation. So with limited opportunities for career advancement and stiff competition, it is important that we set ourselves apart from everyone else. And in my personal opinion, those of us from the BIPOC community need to aspire and set the bar higher, because we're viewed from a different lens historically. We are slowly starting to see a change whereby employees no longer are hired or promoted based on who they know, rather by what they know. So in the fire service, I refer to this as my favorite family of isms. That's patriotism, favoritism, cronyism. And unfortunately, we still have instances where racism and sexism have hindered forward progression for some of our brothers and sisters. But I am proud that our efforts towards EDI is starting to bear fruit. The way in which the fire service approaches today's challenges can no longer be based on tradition. As such, so too must our approach and how we develop leaders. The fire service has transformed from an entity that merely suppresses fire with water and a hose to a complex, multifaceted organization that responds to almost any emergency. Decisions are now based on a combination of thorough research, data, scientific methods, and ideology, resulting in a paradigm shift that emphasizes a higher degree of education and greater responsibility for today's firefighters and the officers who lead them. The need for an educated workforce is no longer debatable in the fire service today, nor any other organization for that matter. My decision to enroll in the Master Public Education program at Dalhousie was not simply to enhance my resume. This decision was made in consultation with my deputy at that time and in preparation for further advancements within our organization. We now are in an era where the lack of competency in leadership positions will lead to public embarrassment at some times and humiliation as citizens and elected officials are demanding accountability. Brothers and sisters, I can't encourage and challenge you enough to take your career to the next level and seek higher education, more training, attend conferences, engage and network with fellow brothers and sisters in the industry. It is extremely important for you to be connected and seek out those support networks. Up until this point in my career, I never had any type of mentoring and coaching to provide necessary support network that I needed, and in some cases that I wanted, and in some cases that I needed. However, that was not and should not be a deterrent that prevents us from fulfilling and accomplishing our goals. Remember, in order to succeed, your desire for success should be greater than your fear for failure. One of the pitfalls in preparing for career progression is focusing too much attention on upgrading our education and skill development and not enough time ensuring that we are mentally and physically prepared to deal with the challenges of leaving our comfort zone. The transition from firefighter to company officer to chief officer brings with it a new set of duties and responsibilities that sometimes can be overwhelming if we haven't adequately prepared ourselves. So if you haven't already done so, develop a list of contacts that you can reach out to if ever the time comes when you feel overburdened, stressed, or simply need someone to share an idea with, or even burn off a little steam. Sometimes a little networking, coaching, and mentoring can go a long way. I also cannot stress enough the importance of healthy living and how your health can affect your career. It's kind of a difficult progress for your career if you're absent more times than you're actually present at work. Next slide, please. So we can plan and prepare as much as we want, but if the opportunity for career progression and advancement is not offered, particularly at the chief officer and senior management level, then our ability to move onward and upward will be limited to lateral transitions. Next slide, please. And I'm almost done. So breaking that historical barrier in our fire department becoming the first Black chief officer and the only non-white male deputy chief is a proud moment in my career, not just because of my personal achievements, but more importantly to me, because it sets the stage for others to see and follow. It's all about blazing a trail so those behind you can begin to blaze their own trail and set that legacy for others. 270 years to be the first and only. We still have a lot of work to do, but we're making progress. As proud as I am of my personal accomplishments, we as an organization, we as an industry still have a lot of work when it comes to diversifying and making our fire department more inclusive and seeing people of color, people from different sexual orientation, gender orientations being in senior leadership management positions. So the work is not done, but we're making progress. So when opportunity presented itself, the path forward became a no-brainer for me. Why? Because I started planning and preparing at an early stage in my career. It's very true that fire departments that value and capitalize on employee diversity have productive and fulfilling workplaces which help them attract and retain employees. That statement is a fact. So knowing all of this, why is it that leadership positions in most fire departments are still not a reflection of the community that we serve? I'll leave it with you to answer that question, but I challenge you this evening and going forward to change that status quo. Next slide, please. Snow picture. So if you desire to be at the table where decisions are made, start planning and prepare yourself so when the opportunity arises, you'll be ready to implement your plan. And when implementing your plan, consider not taking the path already laid. Leave your own trail. Make your journey your journey. My success in the fire service is a result of hard work, determination, self-motivation, and confidence. Confidence in my ability and desire to lead from the front and serve those who serve others. I had a plan from day one and I stuck to it. I did everything I could to prepare for that moment, and when the opportunity presented itself, I put my best foot forward and accepted the challenge. The picture that you're looking at there is me in fire recruit class in 1997 when I first got hired. At that point, I knew I wanted to be more than just a firefighter. And I'm not degrading the position of firefighter because I take pride in every position in our organization. But that's where I started to make my plan. That's where I started to prepare for what that next level would be. Last slide, please. So I'm in a position now where I can determine my own destiny. As a deputy chief, the 2YC, I can determine whether I want to retire at this position or whether I want to persist into that final step, either in this organization or anywhere else, because I took the time and put the effort in order to prepare. The picture that you're looking at now is, to me, this is what it's all about. Having the opportunity as a deputy fire chief to present the helmet to my nephew, who graduated from Career Academy Fire Recruit School in December of last year. That was one of the proudest, if not the proudest moment in my career. And I will treasure that for the rest of my life. So sorry for taking a little more time than I planned and expected to, but I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little insight into my journey in the fire service and what I believe are just a few little tidbits and your adventure towards developing leadership skills and also aspiring to become a leader and senior leader in the fire service. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was absolutely amazing information. And I just really want to reiterate to everybody, this has never been done before. I've never had the opportunity when I was becoming a firefighter, and I'm sure there's several of us on here, we have never had this many leaders in one place with all this information. So please make sure you're taking up this information and using it to the fullest extent. Both chiefs that presented just outstanding information. And I can't thank you enough, both for the amount of information you just gave us. If there's any questions, really quickly, maybe we can answer one or two questions if somebody has any. You can post your questions in the chat if you have a direct question.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, there's no questions coming up. Frank.
Okay, go ahead.
I do have one comment for Chief Beals, though. We're going to be looking for a new fire chief in Edmonton here right away, so please consider applying out here. So.
Yeah, that we need a deputy chief. Actually, we need a fire chief and a deputy chief in Toronto, so please consider. Okay, Lachlan, if there isn't any more questions, I will introduce our next speaker.
Yeah, no questions.
Okay, our next speaker is retired battalion chief from Montreal Fire. This guy truly is amazing. First time I met him, the first time we spoke, I think we talked for almost 3 hours. Didn't even know each other. It was an amazing conversation, and from that point on, this guy really has been an inspiration to me and all of us here at Allied Firefighters, and he really is someone very genuine, and he speaks truly from the heart. So without further ado, Battalion Chief David Shelton, Montreal Fire.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much, Frank, for the kind introduction. I am so glad that we are all here together, and this is a wonderful evening. And I'm so inspired by our previous speakers. I've been asked to offer a brief overview of specialized training and certifications in the context of firefighting and your career development. As you know, this career path that we've chosen is very impressive. The people are impressive. The gear is impressive. The trucks, the stations, the communications, the challenges we face, whether they be fires or accidents, medical emergencies, or whatever, all very impressive. And yet there is still more. Beyond the many and varied services that we offer day in and day out, there is yet another array, an array of specialized services. These include, now I know most people here, this is for career advancement, so you're probably familiar with these terms. If not, then screenshot this, look them up. For the sake of time, we will not be going too deeply into these issues. So these specialized services include hazardous materials response, water and ice rescue, vehicle extrication, high angle rescue, confined space rescue, trench rescue, urban search and rescue, That is in case of building collapse, whether it's because of a storm or an explosion or what have you. And just a little word about that one, that there is an international network of USAR teams, Urban Search and Rescue, that collaborate together to support one another in times of extreme challenges. Now, the brave women and men who have chosen to become specialists have joined a distinguished tradition. They've taken on additional responsibilities and have committed to multiply the amount of training and practice that they'll participate in. A few examples of this work. Imagine a hiker falls down the side of a mountain. They're pinned between a tree and a boulder. They've got a broken leg and they're afraid. Who are they going to call? Not the Ghostbusters. They're going to call us. A crew is working quickly to change the sewer line to a home. They excavate a trench. They change the pipe. And then suddenly the unsupported wall of the trench collapses, burying a worker and threatening the others who would help them. They're going to call us. In the unthinkable yet not uncommon stories of children falling into abandoned wells, if there's hope of saving them, it's best done with confined space rescue techniques. They're going to call us. A fuel tanker spills its load on the freeway. A pedestrian is caught under the wheels of a bus. A boat capsizes in the bay. They are all going to call us. And we will respond. Our specialists will guide us through, using their collective knowledge, their training, their experience, their ingenuity, and more. They will bring us to the best possible outcomes. If you are a firefighter and you have the energy, the passion, the courage, the confidence, and the desire to take your career to the next level, I have two suggestions for you. Number one, take on additional responsibility. Specialization is one great way to do that. You will be stimulated and challenged, and you will find yourself in the company of other driven public safety professionals who want to do more. Your courage and your confidence has brought you this far, and it can carry you further. Suggestion number two. By now, you probably know the best way to master a subject or technique that you've learned is to teach it to someone else. Consider becoming an instructor. The training teams are the standard bearers of our disciplines. They do the research. They answer the questions. They are the subject matter experts. They support the technicians. They incorporate new technologies and methods. They lobby for resources. They advise our administrators. They guide us all into the future of our disciplines. Now, if you are from an underrepresented demographic in the fire service, if you are facing additional adversity in your workplace, whether that be because colleagues react negatively to your skin color, your gender, your sexuality, because you are an introvert or because you're a vegetarian, or because you are a practicing committed allyship for someone who is in these groups, or for whatever reason, Though I can't know precisely what you're dealing with, I have some idea what you're going through. And I encourage you to lean on the noblesse of our mission. Be mindful of the expansive nature of the problems we may be called upon to manage and our precious role in society. Look past the hatred and the ignorance that may present itself. Build or tap into support networks. Lean into your self-care and your personal and professional development. The Allied Firefighters of Canada strives to offer you a supportive community of fire service professionals that may well be able to relate directly to your experience and can almost certainly offer you advice on how to handle situations that you are facing and offer you comfort in the knowledge that you are not alone. In turn, you may be able to do the same for someone else. In closing, I encourage you to enjoy the satisfaction that mastery of your trade has to offer. Strive, stretch, develop yourself into the professional rescuer of your dreams, whether that be through a specialty, as a driver, as an instructor, as an officer, as an administrator, or whatever you choose. Reach for greatness through service of others, and the world will benefit from your pursuit of excellence. Remember, they're going to call us, and we will respond. If you have any questions, I have a minute or two left, I think.
Thank you so much, Chief Shelton. Very good to see you. Awesome presentation.
Nice to meet you.
Lachlan, do you know if there's any questions coming up?
Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any specific questions coming up for Chief Shelton.
Well, if I can take another minute to say, because, you know, it was kind of a quick overview, specialties are remarkable. Sometimes in the fire service, after a few years of working hard to become a good firefighter and learn all of the basic techniques, a routine can install, and there can be a lull depending on the activity of the service that you're in. These special services, should one of them pique your curiosity, are fantastic ways to use your energy to channel your desire to serve your community and to carry your service further into the future, keeping us all safer, the respondents, the firefighters and emergency workers, and also offering greater service to our citizens. So I urge you all to give that some thought. And it's a great way, as well, as I said, the trainers, the training centers, the people who do the research and development to develop these techniques are a fantastic and dynamic group of people to be around. And I would advise you to take advantage of those opportunities where you can find them.
Chief Shelton, I know you've had an opportunity to visit one of the places that I teach private instruction.
Yes.
And I can say without a doubt that having that instruction, even though it's outside of the fire service, being able to instruct others in technical rescue or advanced rescue techniques, it's invaluable when it comes to my job in the fire department, and how the two kind of correlate back and forth with each other. That, you know, like you said earlier, you know, the best way to learn it is to teach it. And I think, you know, you were right on point when you said that. And I'd like to see more people actually step up and decide to teach others. Teach others what they're learning. Right? Because
Yes.
that's how we advance through the fire service.
A
So
question
true.
did come up for Chief Shelton here. Does it hurt to acquire specialized training like 1006 for a pre-hire service?
I say it's always good. Basics come first. So a real mastery of the basics are come first, unless you have a situation like here in Montreal. If you happen to start at a station that has a specialty, then tend to the basics for the first few years. Make sure that you know your trucks inside out and backwards, every piece of equipment, what they do, alternate ways of using the equipment, and then after that, move on. But if you want to take an introduction in the pre-training and get that information, that's good too. But know that in the years between that and when you actually use those things, there may be some modifications that happen. And maintaining skills is the thing. But if you're curious about it and you have time to take it, by all means do it.
One quick question that came up that I could see in the chat is, sorry, once we get the reverberations, just mute that. Perfect. So hazmat tech, I've seen some guys asking about that. If you're trying to get into a probationary firefighter position before you spend the money, it's like 10 days. It's like $1,300. It's a big ask. You want to, like Chief Shelton just said, make sure that you have the minimum qualifications and you focus on that before you spend any extra money on like a hazmat tech course. Now there are a few places that you can go and get them if you wanted to. Festi offers a course every once in a while. Southwest Fire offers it. JIBC out in BC, they offer it, the Justice Institute, and then there's a place in Alabama that you can get hazmat tech as well. But again, it's a $1,400 to $2,000 expense, and you really want to make sure that you know the basics of firefighting before you kind of fill your mind and fill your resume with that. Okay, just wanted to answer that one real quick.
I second what you. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I'd just like to add on to that though. There are fire services out there like industrial fire that will require hazmat tech as part of their recruitment process. So there are jurisdictions that do require that. So just be mindful of what the requirements are and what you will need. And just like Chief Beals was talking about there, have a goal, have a plan, and work the plan.
If I could add something as well, I think what everyone's talking about here is pertainable experience. So the teaching, working for a rescue company for confined space or below grade. I know people who work for crash trucks on the highway. Pertainable experience, it all helps out. It all gives you a lot of that training that you will require, specialized training that will add to it. And to Chris's point, why not get paid to do the training towards what you want anyways?
Another question that came up here, a little bit of a tougher question, though something that David and I actually presented on in Calgary a couple months ago. Chief Shelton, how do we overcome the fact that many of our colleagues often attempt to let us know or remind us that we are not welcome to serve?
Okay, that is a sticky wicket, and it's a very personal and particular situation. Like I invite that person to, if you would maybe put them in touch with me, that would be probably better. But in general, a lot of things, there are a lot of variables. If it's a small department, or even if it's a larger department, we have to focus on what we can handle, what we can control. That's where our primary work is. Now, people manage this in different ways. As you can probably hear from my presentation, I believe in the pursuit of excellence. I believe that if I work hard to bring the awesome to my team, it will eventually be recognized. And if it's not, whether it's recognized or not, I'm bringing it. Now, usually that will help, but even if it doesn't help, it makes me stronger and it makes our team stronger. Some cultures are toxic, and some of them you can do something about, others you can't. So sometimes when it's impossible, you can consider other options, but certainly something that Chief Beals mentioned, something Kalpana mentioned, is, and that everyone has mentioned, is the mentorship, is the network. Find someone you can talk to help you develop a strategy to deal with the situation and to develop yourself in the process. But it's important, once again, to sort of have a plan and to be active on working on it, so that you don't just find yourself wasting away in a toxic situation and find yourself falling victim, having health problems, suffering from the stress because of it. So yes, bring the awesome and talk to someone who can help you figure out how to unravel that situation, who has a better idea of the specifics and the nature of the characters, hopefully, or that you can explain the characters that you're dealing with.
If I could even add to that, just a simple basic thing would be also just watch who you're giving your energy to. Give your energy those who are going in the same direction as you. That would be a start, a very basic start. I know it's very plain Jane kind of answer, but it is important. Instead of focusing on those who are trying to knock you down, surround yourself with those who are heading in the same direction as you and have your back.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. Again, I'm going to reiterate the fact that this has never been done before, and the amount of information that is flowing on this presentation right now is amazing. We're going to keep it going. Captain Agard is going to introduce the next presenter.
Okay, thank you. Pleasure to introduce Chief and Commissioner Bill Boys, a friend of Allied Firefighters of Canada, including being in on our first call when this was all in the planning stages. So he's been a supporter from day one, what we're doing. He is Fire Chief and Commissioner of Community Services for Brampton. Chief Boys is responsible for leading over 3,800 staff across a number of departments, including fire and emergency services, recreations, parks, cultural services, community safety and well-being, and 311. In 2021, Chief Boys was named Fire Chief of the Year in Canada. He completed his PhD in 2023 at the University of Toronto, which supplements his master's degree in public policy and administration and bachelor's degree in public management. He loves spending time with his wife, Tanya, daughter, Elle, and son, Jack. In his spare time, enjoys hockey and golf. So my pleasure to introduce our leader and chief in Brampton, Bill Boys.
Good evening, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, thumbs up. I definitely failed the first test of the day, which was just to log on to this webinar. I think I started at about 8 o'clock and I finally got on now. So thank you so much, Ryan. Thank you so much to the Allied Firefighters group. Ryan, I remember speaking to you a long time ago about this, and really awesome to see it come to fruition and see everybody here. I put together a short presentation. I'm really hopeful too that people just ask questions. hopefully I can impart some information that will help you in your career journey, not only when you become a firefighter, but as you progress through the ranks. Because as I'll talk about, I think we have a real challenging period ahead of us as a fire service, and the need to inspire leaders, I think, is greater than ever at all ranks. From you start at captain and up through the different chief officer ranks, right to the very top at the fire chief level. So happy to be here. Thank you, Allied, for all you do. I really think that you're helping shape the future of the fire service, and just proud to be a part of this, and along with a number of familiar faces and names that I see. If you give me 1 second, I'm going to share my presentation. If somebody can just give me a heads up that you can see my screen. Or can you see my screen? One second. So it is not working. So I'm going to, in the interest of time, I'm going to proceed forward. But I wanted to first talk a little bit about my background and my career journey, just to give you some context. I know Ryan gave a long introduction, so I won't spend too much time on it. But I started in the fire service back in 2002 as a volunteer firefighter in a small town called Point Edward, right near Sarnia, and was fortunate to be able, a couple of years later, to join Brampton Fire and Emergency Services as a career firefighter, and spent last better part of 20 years there, with the exception of a few years where I went to Barrie. But some things you may or may not know about me is I'm very privileged and fortunate and proud to be a third generation fire chief. My grandfather served alternate line duty. My father, 71 years old, still serving in the fire service at 51 years. And I come from a family that right now has over a century of active service in both police and fire through the city of Vaughan, the town of St. Thomas, and then my father as well. So it's something I'm very, very proud of. And I truly will say love the fire service, love the emergency services. And honestly, the people that we have in our services are just incredible. There's some real awesome things that people do every single day that go unnoticed, that make a huge difference in the community. Very, very proud to be one small part of that. One thing that I was fortunate to do was, and I'll give credit to the city of Brampton, was leverage education to move through the ranks. Without my schooling, I have no doubt that I would be nowhere close as to where I am today. And I was fortunate to become a deputy chief in the city of Barrie in 2014, and moved on to become the chief in 2015. And since then, I've been a chief officer for the better part of a decade. And I'll say it really has flown by. Recently, back in 2022, just to give some context to my introduction as well, I transitioned to a commissioner role, and I'm the acting fire chief now, but full-time commissioner of community services. And it's really also brought forward a real appreciation for some of the things that we have and some of the work we do in the fire service. As you move outside of what you're used to, maybe in your day-to-day journey, you really garner that appreciation and awareness of some of the great things that we do in the fire service. So the reason the Allied Group contacted me today was to talk a little bit about networking and professional connections. So I just want to take the next few minutes, touch on a few pieces of advice I have, and then happy to take any questions from there. So in terms of networking, I think some really key things for everybody on this call to be aware of today is that it starts early in your career. It starts even before you actually enter into the fire service and what I'll call your pre-career journey. You are going to meet a lot of people that are, ultimately trying to move in the same direction as yourselves. And you're going to meet a lot of people as you take courses, as we were just learning about, professional connections that you will have the possibility of having relationships with that could help you down the road. So one thing I think that's very important is to make sure you attend a variety of events, conferences, and opportunities. And with that, we just had the discussion earlier about the certifications that you may want to attain prior to joining. And recognizing that every department has prerequisites that are different, I think it's very important to not stay within what I call the fire bubble. I think it's important to get outside and attend events that may not be directly relatable, but would provide you knowledge, skills, or abilities that could then transcend back into the role of a firefighter or any of the roles that you may be entering into in the fire service. One thing that I focus on and was told to me too is the concept of stretching. So don't be afraid to stretch. You know, I remember, I think I was just a first class firefighter, and I spent the time and attended on my own money, because it wasn't covered by the department, the OAFC conference, just to learn more about what was happening in the fire service, what was this whole world of you know, the trade show, what were fire chiefs learning about. There were some sessions that were maybe a little bit above my head, but I really felt like it pushed me to stretch and understand things beyond maybe what was directly in front of me, but helped me grow as an individual, especially as someone who was a firefighter aspiring to move up through the ranks. I also think it's equally important when we're talking about moving outside of our fire bubble is to look at other things in the public sector, you know, some direct connections we can automatically assume. Emergency medical services, the police sector. I attended conferences in both of those and had some great takeaways. Even broader municipal conferences or other public sector conferences, there's a lot that you will learn and a lot of information you can glean that will help you in your career, make you more well-rounded, especially if you're attempting to move up into the higher ranks of the fire service, where you are naturally going to transition from a response role to an administrative role. Just quickly, a few of the examples that I found helpful for me with networking were one with a group called FSTAR, and it was a group involved in research and scientific research with the fire service, which translated or was relatable back to some of the schooling I was having. But again, that was to me a stretch opportunity where I challenged some of my boundaries and was able to meet a group of people that I still have some really strong connections with. In terms of professional connections, just a few points I wanted to touch on. Again, these are built very early in your career, pre-career journey, just like the networking. But I do think and do know that they will vary over time, and they do require a lot of effort. I think that's important to recognize that these connections that we make, yeah, they may be fleeting at times, but they're like friendships. They require effort. And one thing I always think about is connections certainly come and go, but they ultimately, a lot of times you'll see they return, especially if you're in a role where you may be moving up through the ranks and you may be going to a new municipality. You may be roles even within your department. It's amazing how some of the people that you work with that were a past connection will ultimately return. So I think it's very, very important that you remember that. Remember what it's like when you were starting out. I think back to when I was a new firefighter and, you know, trying to enter that conference with the chief officers for the first time and how intimidating it was. You know, if you see someone like that, make sure you take a moment and, you know, recognize that individual, maybe a quick conversation. I think that will go a long way, and just in the spirit of helping others move and inspire through the ranks. Like we all, at some point, for those of us who have moved up, have been in that position before. One final piece of advice, I think more not really to do with networking and professional connections, but just in terms of some reflections on my career and some advice that I would have is to have a plan. I remember very early on charting out, which at the time seemed a little bit funny to think that you'd want to progress from a firefighter all the way to a fire chief. But having that plan with some timelines and some defined milestones, I really felt helped keep you on track. And I think that's something that I would recommend to anyone listening here today. As you heard me too, leverage a lot of different develop opportunities. I just really, if I could stress one thing, again, with the passion for the fire service I have, don't be afraid to look outside the fire service. There's a lot of great opportunities where you can learn a lot of very key things that will make you become a better fire captain, district chief, a deputy chief, a fire chief, that you may not learn right within the fire service, but will certainly pay dividends in the long run. Also, I think it's important to recognize that the role of the fire chief, the role of the chief officer is evolving. I think right now you're expected to be, a multifaceted expert. At times I joke that as a fire chief, you need to be a lawyer, an architect, procurement expert, labor relations superstar at times, but just understand that the role that you have now will change. But I think a lot of the things that you learn as a first responder certainly transcend that administrative or that responder divide, as I'll call it. So I think there's some things with time management, decision making that can really help, that you've honed as a first responder, that can ultimately help you as you become a chief officer. I think it's undeniable that the role of a fire chief and chief officer is community centric. You have to be a skilled administrator, which is where you'll get that from your continuing education. And you need to have strategic foresight, where you have to look beyond the fire service to see what's happening in other disciplines to help make our discipline as the fire service a little bit better. So I think that lens, that how do we all make the fire service better and better prepared for the future? Ultimately, one day, those that are sitting in the seat of an aspiring firefighter will be sitting here and probably giving a similar presentation to the one that I am today. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions about networking, professional connections, or anything in the world of the fire service, and I'll try to do my best to answer.
Thanks, Commissioner. There's one question that came up here. It was kind of more in line with Chief Rajgopalan, but I think you would be able to answer it in this session here. Is what's your approach to finding a mentor? This person here is a newcomer and they have a limited network.
Yeah, I think it's in terms of reaching out. I mean, we see a lot of stuff with LinkedIn. We see a lot now where we're ultimately a lot more connected as a society than we were maybe even 10 years ago through virtual means, different groups. I think you really have to reach out, and I think you have to build a bit of a relationship over time. I think sometimes it's too much to expect that you just email somebody, hey, Bill, I'd like to mentor you. I think you really need time to foster and develop relationships with some of those people that you look up to. And I think you want to make sure you choose a mentor that has maybe not necessarily the exact personality or skills that you desire, but have something where you have a connection to, because I think you have to build that personal relationship a little bit. And understand that what they can help you with, but understand also too how you can foster it, how you can drive it, because I think sometimes the people you're reaching out to as mentors will be probably extremely busy. Time is very in limited supply for a lot of people. So I think it just takes time, and be patient and try a lot of different avenues, because I'm sure a few of the opportunities or people you reach out to may not necessarily work, but don't give up and persevere.
Thank you. Appreciate that. My initial answer to that participant was the use of social media like LinkedIn. I know a vast majority of our network in Allied Firefighters of Canada has been done through the connections made through LinkedIn, and those connections continue to expand and build just through social media. So that's a really good tool. Thanks, Commissioner. Appreciate it. I'm not seeing any additional questions here for the Commissioner. Does anybody on our panel have questions for the Commissioner?
I put everybody to sleep, I guess, so it's okay. No, thank you so much for having me, though. I appreciate everybody's time.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for that. Our last speaker tonight is Vancouver's first female fire chief and general manager of Vancouver Fire Rescue Services. To talk about continuous learning and adaptation is Chief Karen Fry.
Hi, everybody. Can you see me okay? I don't see myself, so
Yes.
no, thumbs up. Awesome. Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to speak with you here today. It's my honor to work every single day on the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. You know, they've been in our community since time immemorial, and we're just wonderful advocates for protecting the lands. And we just hope to do them a little bit of, you know, a little bit of honor in protecting it ourselves with them. So shout out to my team. I think I have a few recruiters on here today. So anybody that's interested in working for Vancouver, look at the picture. What a beautiful city. You know, we have water. It looks like this today, right now, but we probably had about 20 centimeters of rain earlier in the day. So thanks, and come to BC. We're hiring all the time. Okay, next slide. Thanks, whoever's moving them for me. Perfect. So I'm going to talk just a little bit today on continuous learning and being adaptable in the fire service. So over the next 15 minutes, we're going to explore the significance of ongoing education and what that means in my brain, some practical experience, and being a proactive involvement in shaping a successful career within the fire service. Not really sure as to who is participating here today, whether it's people trying to get into the fire service or maybe you're already in the fire service. So hopefully I can help a little bit of each of you. Next slide, thank you. So maybe a bit too, you know, I listened to everybody else's kind of stories. I'm in my 25th year in the fire service. I didn't start from the traditional way. I wasn't ever a firefighter. I put out lots of fires, but none of them with water. It's usually conflict resolution. So I started in my career in the fire service as a dispatcher, and then worked my way up into a captain and eventually a deputy chief, and moved around, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about that now. So continuous learning kind of encompasses in my idea kind of a spectrum of activities aimed at really expanding your knowledge, honing those skills, and being adaptable. Now you need to be motivated all the time. Whatever learning you're doing, you need to set your goals and you need to have to direct yourself and be motivated. If you're not already removing those barriers and finding that passion for training or for learning, you're probably just going to create yourself a whole bunch of extra anxiety that you really don't need. So find that motivation, find that purpose that you need, set your goals and start working towards them. It's not just about earning degrees or certifications. I know there was a lot of talk earlier. There was some talk about hazmat. I'm going to kind of put it right out there. And unless you're going to get a job before you come into the fire service working for a hazmat company, I don't think you necessarily need that training before, because once you're hired, we're going to train you to the standard within our own departments. And that is critical. I used to run a training academy. It's called Viera. It's on Vancouver Island, who works to Pro Board. And we would have a lot of volunteer firefighters come and prepare to get a job in the career service, and they would get their fire officer courses and their incident safety officer certifications. It's great to have it to put on your resume, but at the end of the day, as an employer, we probably don't look too much at that. We look more for, we're going to train you on our way of doing business once you're hired. So you've seen a lot of departments drop all of their prerequisites, except for maybe a driver's license of some sort, or maybe a first aid. And we've seen that about reducing barriers. Next page. You guys are so good. I think too, just for anybody that's maybe early in their career or thinking about it, what you will find out is that you'll start your job and you'll be trained so well. You'll have so many skills. You'll go through recruit class and you will be trained to the top notch the first couple of years on the job. What then potentially happens is there's a big lull in a lot of people's careers before maybe they start their officers training. Find something that works for you and try to find it. And we heard earlier from Battalion Chief Shelton is maybe find a specialty at that point in time, or maybe find something else that's going to help make you the best person that you can at that position you're in. So while formal education plays a crucial role in any career advancement, I'd suggest a couple. Here's some degrees that work well off the top of my head. Emergency management, that's a big one, right? We all know about that. Business administration, we kind of heard a little bit about finding things that aren't necessarily traditional in the fire service. Once you're leading or moving up within an organization, you are now working with colleagues from local government, and many of them have master's degree, doctorates. They understand business and finance, and that's always been a little bit of a shortfall in the fire service as we get up to higher ranks. Just because somebody made an awesome firefighter, it doesn't necessarily mean that they will make the best fire chief. So emergency management, business administration, science, I know that's crazy, engineering, that really helps with fire prevention. And even we're hiring a lot of people nowadays that seem to have kinesiology. And is that because maybe they've come from an athletic background? Is it maybe about understanding their physical abilities? We are seeing a lot come through that we're hiring. My recruiters are on the line, so maybe that's their little penchants for it. And then highlight and sell your degree. So when you do come to an interview, I have a degree in general studies. And if you told somebody, if you had told me when I was in high school about getting a degree in general studies, I would have said, that's a useless degree. What does that give you? It's like an arts degree. But figure out how to sell it. And we heard this earlier in the presentations when we talked about selling yourself in your interview. So figure out what you need to sell yourself and why that degree will make you the best candidate, or what skills you got from your degree that are going to make you an exceptional firefighter, exceptional officer, exceptional chief. And you can pick parts out of it. It's not necessarily that you have a degree in fire science. That's wonderful, but maybe you have a degree in business, or maybe you're a teacher. And you can figure out a way to sell it to show them that not only can you learn and grow, but you can actually apply your degree. Think about things like, with mine, I emphasize things like my critical thinking. So I took a critical thinking class. I took a conflict resolution class, problem solving, statistics. I don't really know if the anthropology really helped me much, but there were more good classes than not. And it really just shows a commitment to education. So whatever the degree or education level you have, learn about why it's important and learn how to sell it. Next page, or next slide, thanks. Some of the other things that I've found when I'm looking to hire people, especially as we move through the ranks, are not only fire service courses, because we all know that those all help, right? You need your incident command ICS courses, you need your EOC level courses, you need your fire officer 1, 2, and 3 to move up through the ranks. But some other supplemental formal education not only are tailored to the fire service, but there's a lot at municipal and local government levels. So there's courses I recommend a lot of the times when people are trying to move up in our organization. One of the biggest gaps that I see is in project management. We're really good being reactionary and being able to put the water on the fire and put the fire out. But that long-term kind of strategic planning, having a project from start to finish, and how you keep it on task or on track is really important. And we do seem to get off track quite often in the fire service. So I don't know, I'm building a fire hall right now and it feels like it's taking 5 years, right? Or we implement a new system, and whatever that new system might be, it seems to be, you know, it ends up always taking a lot longer than what it's expecting or what people are expecting it to be. So a lot of the times you start with your end date and you move backwards, and project management's really good for that. Strategic planning. Here's a big one. I'm sure there's a few math geeks out there. Data analytics, how to understand the information that we are collecting every single day and tell the story. So figure out what the data is you're collecting and what that story is with it. So I'm going to just give you a quick little story here. We realized in Vancouver that our fires are going through the roof, literally. Like our fires have doubled in the last 4 or 5 years, and more building fires, more property losses, and we're blaming it all on the clientele, right? The people living in our supportive housing units. And it was smoking related materials. So we actually dug deeper into the information that we were collecting and asking our officers to collect, and we realized that there's been a change in opioid use that's gone from injection to inhalation. And with the inhalation, they've come across these lighters. So we all remember a barbecue lighter or a torch lighter. You hold it, it stays on. There's these ones now that lock in place. So if your finger goes off it, it stays on. What happens is people use their drugs, they inhale, they become incapacitated, they drop these lighters, and they start themselves on fire or start a building fire with them, or outside of a building or a garbage fire. But it is prolific, and we never realized until we actually started looking at our data. And so that's why you need to be able to tell the story. So any kind of courses that you can do about that, it's a real kind of gap right now. Budgeting. People ask, can I go to this conference? Can I do this? And I'm like, well, what's the budget and how much is it going to cost? What's it going to cost us to buy new fire engines? Or, you know, I want to do a new program. It's a lot different than just thinking about your salary and maybe a hard cost. There's a lot of long-term costs. So some sort of budgeting, it is a gap. And just look for a real holistic skill set. You don't have to be an expert in any one of those things, but a really good broad understanding of different components would really help people out. I think another thing is it's really important to stress about the significance of simplicity in communications. So many times we get these degrees, they teach you how to write your APA standard, you go through university if you have a university degree, and you create such large, wordy documents, processes, resumes. But think about your audience and think about how important it is to keep it as simple and succinct as possible. Use as few words as possible in whatever you're doing. Maybe not necessarily in your interview, because I haven't done an interview in a while, but you know, in your written form especially, keep it simple. I check out quite early on. If somebody writes me, I get it every single day, an email that's probably 4 paragraphs long when a simple paragraph would have been sufficient. And I know that my friend Chief Matt Peg says the exact same thing, right? Keep it and use as few words as possible in order to really relay the message. Next slide, thanks. Stuff lots to talk about. Okay, so we talked about education. While our credentials are essential, your practical experience is also really vital. So find the balance between academic and hands-on involvement. I'd say we're going to talk a little bit about this in a bit, but I want to encourage you to pursue initiatives, projects, community involvement outside of the traditional scope of the fire service. Try and learn and do something different. So really, like when I look at a resume, if there's too many degrees, too many diplomas, too many certifications and courses, they'll go on pages. As a chief, I'm thinking, wow, if you just spend all your time in school and you're not getting any practical experience, what else are you missing out on? It's great, you know, but we're not hiring chiefs all the time, right? We're hiring firefighters to begin with. And it sometimes does put me off if I'm even hiring a chief officer and I get resumes in and they're just over compensated, I guess, with listing every single degree. I know it's really important, but did I hear today if Elon Musk can get it in really in like 1 or 2 pages, we should be able to as well. It's really about trying to find your practical experience and where you can find some of those, whether you've driven taxi, because what do you learn driving taxi? You probably learn your mapping, you learn your way around town, you learn customer service. Customer service is one of the most important aspects of this job. And so it's really important. Next page. So just a little bit on proactive involvement. Leadership isn't confined to titles. It's really about influencing change. I want to encourage everybody, in order to get those experiences, you need to put up your hands. And I heard from Kalpana today that usually men will be, in general, will put up their hand if they've got 60% of the knowledge, and women more want to be 100% sure. Wherever you are on that spectrum, even if you're at 40%, put your hand up for an opportunity. And be honest about what you know and what you don't know. But put your hands up for opportunities, because people aren't going to be looking at any one of you and pull you out. They have to know that you want an opportunity to be involved. So things like special projects, employee resource groups, committees within and outside of the department. What are some of the things that I did early on? Because it's not like people searched me out and said, hey, we think you're going to be a fire chief in Vancouver. No, I had to slowly start putting my hand up for whatever program I was in at the time. I joined a health and safety group. I was a first aid attendant before I was in the fire service. I put my hand up to take on different roles through my boss. Before I came to Vancouver, they were missing a bylaw manager. So I said, hey, I can do that at the same time. I'll do it for 6 months to give you a hand with that. They want people to present at a conference. They want people to train. Like I said, nobody is going to be looking at you. Nobody is looking at me. I'm a marginalized group. I fit within this bucket. They're not going to look at you to be a natural leader. It doesn't come naturally for them to look and say, hey, let's put a woman in the fire chief. She'll be successful. You need to stick up your hand to be brave and to take that initiative. There's a lot of great work through unions. Like once you join your fire department, there may be committee work through your unions as well. And even through your city or through whoever your current employer is. Hopefully it's a fire service soon. Next page. So this is what I look like sometimes, but impact and influence. So we heard again about the importance of building relationships and the importance of relationships from Chief Boys. I think that is one of my superpowers. So figure out what your superpower is. Mine is the ability to build relationships. So be proactive and be responsible and be proactive in your career preparation and your career progression. I don't, if you ask me what I'm going to do next when I'm done being a fire chief in Vancouver, I don't know, because I think it should be at the end of my career. And I don't normally think too far in advance. I like to have whimsical kind of thoughts, but I usually like to think one step ahead of where I'm at and work towards that. Offer solutions when you go to speak to people, not just problems. Nobody likes people that just comes up and brings problems. So show people how creative you are. Encourage, I want you to step up, to take initiative and become the change agent within your own organization, within your area of influence, and expand that, right? I think listening is really important. I used to be a terrible listener, by the way. I think I'm getting better. My staff may be laughing at me right now. Next page. I'm almost done. So it's in each of you to believe in yourself, to sell yourself, and to guide your own career. Find a mentor. And when we heard earlier about how do you find it, there's a lot of different groups to find it. There's reach out to a chief. If you know a chief, reach out to somebody on this group here and said, hey, I'm looking for a mentor. Can you recommend somebody for me? Because maybe it's not me, because I already mentor a couple of people, but maybe it's somebody else that might want an opportunity to be a mentor, right? It's a leadership for people as well. So continuous learning and being adaptable to the changing environment. The fire service is changing so fast, and we need to be adaptable. You balance your formal education with your practical experiences and being an involved individual. If you're not volunteering, figure out a way to volunteer, because that is good for so many reasons, not just for your own well-being, but it's also really important because it gives back to your community. It fills your bucket up, and it kind of takes away some of the bad stuff that we see and do every day. Thanks for your attention. Strive towards excellence in your professional journeys, and all the best.
Thank you so much, Chief Fry. That was amazing. Does anybody have any questions for Chief Fry?
So there hasn't been any questions that come in from the gallery yet, but I have one for myself. Chief Fry, you mentioned about selling yourself. This is for myself something I struggle with from two standpoints. One, culturally, my background's from a West African culture where when we talk about ourselves and we sell ourselves, it's called being boastful. It's really looked down upon, right? So it's culturally, it's really hard to talk about yourself, especially in an interview. But on the other side of that too, professionally as a firefighter coming from a fire service background, I've been a firefighter for 20 years now. It's a selfless profession where we don't talk about ourselves, we talk about the team all the time. So when you're in a interview for an executive position like a fire chief, how do you learn to sell yourself? How do you learn to bring out all those qualities? For myself, thinking about 20 years of experience in training and background, how do you present that to your panel interviewers?
Really good question, and you're bang on, because we all hear about being on the team, right? And I struggle with it as well, because I find, and like I said, I stand out enough. I don't want it always to be about me. So you kind of make it more about the team a lot of the time, because it's like, oh, there she goes again. One of the things that I do, especially for interviews, I take copious notes. I'm sure one day it may end up in a book, but who knows? But when I'm thinking about applying for a job, I start preparing and I write situations down in a book, and I'll think about what of all the things that you've done. So when you talk about training or leading a project, I will write real specifics about it and then figure out what my role was. And you have to really sit through that. And then when you get to an interview, you're going to have all of these different examples because you're going to review them. And when they ask you a question, you're like, oh, okay, you know what? I remember this one now. And maybe at the beginning, you be totally honest and candid and said, you know, it's really challenging to sell ourselves and talk about ourselves, just like you've mentioned, because we work as a team. Teamwork is critical to everything we do and everything I believe in. So you must excuse if I have a difficulty kind of selling myself as much, but I'm going to do my best. And that's kind of a little bit of humility, right? And humility is really important as well. But I think one thing I've done, because you don't really realize the role that you played until you start writing it all down. And if you don't know what your role is or was on something, give it some thought. Pause to think about what your position was or how you influenced or what impact you had or how it impacted you. And then once you have it, you can kind of keep that in your little book that you can open up when you need to do it for an interview. Because I always think too, you know, I've had people that can sell themselves like crazy and they end up being terrible employees. Right? We have that. So we do want to see people with authenticity. And I think if you maybe address that at the beginning and then walk through that as best you can, but just preparation is probably the best thing you can do, and practice. And then drop it, right? Because I still like, you do it for the interview and then I drop that ego as best I can. Hope that helped.
It does. Thank you. I'm going to put this out to all of the chiefs here today. So you all can answer, one person can answer whatever. This is from the gallery. What do you think is the key from going from reactive to proactive within fire services? Again, that's an open question for any of the chiefs.
Oh, I've got lots of thoughts on that. I'll start since I'm still unmuted. The fire service traditionally gets a call, we respond to a fire, you respond to an emergency, and we go into action. That is kind of the response aspect. If we think about reactive as far as hiring or reactive as far as anything in our personnel, it's like something happens and you deal with it, you address it. Proactive is really about making the change and doing the motion towards creating a change within our environment. So that could be anything from fire prevention. It could be about hiring. What proactive things are we doing instead of just reacting once the situation's occurred? So maybe we hire people and we realize that we react because they're not a good fit. But what proactive things could have we done to address racism or sexism or inability of skills or whatever the challenge may be? It's really about putting that thought and planning beforehand. That's just mine.
Anyone else want to take a jab at that? That was a great answer, Chief, by the way. Oh, okay. So thinking about barriers in the fire service and reaching, you know, executive chief officer ranks, seniority tends to be a bit of a barrier for a lot of people, especially in our current demographics, where you know, a lot of people may not have a seniority to be able to move through the ranks. You know, we have a lot of older firefighters, and they will end up retiring as firefighters. Do you have any strategies on how to navigate around the seniority system for aspiring chief officers? Anyone?
I will just keep answering if nobody wants to answer. Oh, Corey, go ahead. Sorry, I don't want to take it away from that.
Thanks, Chief. I appreciate that.
I'm going to be very quick on this, and I alluded to it earlier, but for me, one of the key takeaways when you are competing against several others in your organization, and seniority tends to be the key to promoting, particularly at the unionized positions. Similar in our department, seniority is the key. Everyone meets a minimum qualification. You apply for a promotion and you pass the promotional process, then the senior most person is the one that's going to be successful in getting the promotion. And then from that point onward, you can start developing your career and experience and exposure in order to promote into a management position. So one of the recommendations that I would give you is to do whatever you need to do in order to separate yourself from the masses. When I say separate yourself from the masses, and other chiefs online alluded to the same thing, get higher education. Seek out higher education. If that means if the department's not going to pay for it, if the department doesn't have a reimbursement policy where they would reimburse you 50% upon completion or 100% upon completion, then sometimes you may need to deep dig in your pocket, and that overtime money that you're making, maybe you reinvest that money into your own education, upgrading your education so that you can get the particular education and academic credentials that you need in order to separate yourself from your peers who may not have that, and that may be one of the prerequisites to promote up. Another thing is to expose yourself. Get exposed to as much as you possibly can that will help broaden your horizon and your perspective so that it will help prepare you for that promotion. Go online, go to conferences if you're able to go to conferences, network with others who are in those roles who you can get assistance with, communicate with HR. You know, HR professionals tend to be extremely helpful in helping you navigate the system and helping you prepare for promotional routines. You know, and I'm a huge advocate of HR professionals in that space. You know, but the other thing, and again, this is luck. You may not have that opportunity in your own department just because of mere numbers and seniority policy. Don't get restricted to your own department. A lot of us have this mindset that I started here, this is where I was born and raised, this is where I want to transpire my career from firefighter up through the ranks. I have that attitude in Halifax because I'm a homeboy and I don't want to go anywhere. But don't limit yourself to your own department, because there are thousands of departments across Canada where you can actually promote and aspire to become an officer if your department doesn't provide that opportunity. Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, I agree with Corey on all the points. I was going to say you may sometimes have to look outside your own department. I've moved 3 times, and 1, 2, 3, maybe 4, and once back to the same department when the department I started at wasn't ready for a woman to be in a leadership position at any real level. And so I took that opportunity to move somewhere that was, and then came back 10 years later, and then ended up being their chief. So shame on them. But they actually got a better chief because I learned a lot more from working in another department that made me a way stronger candidate. And then the other thing for people that are maybe in existing positions right now in a unionized environment, sometimes if you're in suppression, it's really lockstep seniority. But look for some opportunities in other areas in the department that might be into prevention or into what we would call group 2. So it's off of the fire floor, and there's usually a lot of different opportunities where you can build your skills in that level, which will help you by being a more holistic, rounded employee down the road.
Excellent, thank you. I think that's kind of all we have time for Q&A today. We're running a little bit behind, so I think we're going to close up the seminar. Frank?
Thanks, Lachlan. I just want to say that I'm totally blown away by the information that was on this presentation, and I hope that the people that were involved in it and listening take that information to heart. There's a lot of really good information. Hopefully Allied will be a source of information for you going forward in your career, or whether you're a firefighter, you have questions. The running theme, I think, tonight was networking, mentoring, and be afraid to fail. And if you can do those things, I think you'll find yourself in a very good position to moving yourself forward in the fire service. Again, super proud of everybody tonight. The Allied team was really, really great. This is a first for us. Got a funny feeling we might have to be doing this again, but just really amazing job to everyone, the presenters and everybody behind the scenes. And I think that's it. I think we're gonna sign off. And yeah, Captain Ryan, if you want to say a few words.
Just a tremendous night. Thank you to all our respected fire service leaders and chief officers who came and participated and linked arms with us with this. It's fantastic. The information is great. Very motivating for all of us. And as Frank just said, yeah, we want to be a source for change and improvement and continued improvement. This profession that we all love. And thanks for participating and allowing us to be that source. And we'd love to do this again at some point.
Just to mention too, our social media links, you can find us on LinkedIn at Allied Firefighters of Canada. You can find us on X at BIPOC Fire. And I believe today we are launching a new website. It's either today or tomorrow. I'm not sure if it was launched today, but we're launching a new website, new look, additional content, and also where people can sign up for memberships, and it'll be lots of information there what your membership will provide you there. Yeah, thanks for everybody for coming tonight.
Thanks, chiefs. Thanks, colleagues. It was a tremendous night for Allied, and I think a tremendous night for those that decided to remain in attendance for some incredible guest speakers. So thank you to the guest speakers, and look forward to seeing you at our next event.
Outstanding. Everybody have a great evening and stay safe.